The space around Kepler Station burned with the light of dying ships. Commander Velthara pressed her scaled hands against the observation deck window and watched another Zephyrian cruiser explode into bright fragments. The Dominion fleet had been attacking for 6 days now, and her forces were running out of everything that mattered. She counted the enemy ships again and felt her hope sink lower. 800 Dominion vessels filled the darkness between the stars like a swarm of hungry insects. Their bioships pulsed with sickly green light as they fired plasma bursts that could melt through the strongest armor. Against this massive force, she had only 43 ships left, and most of those were damaged. The station shook again as another wave of plasma bolts hit the shields. Velthara could hear the metal groaning under the stress. The outer ring had already been evacuated after the Dominion broke through the first barrier 3 hours ago. Now they were falling back to the inner defenses, but everyone knew those would not last much longer. Dr. Kevin Walsh ran past her carrying a medical kit toward the wounded section. The human looked tired and scared, but he kept working to help the injured aliens. Velthara had always liked the soft-skinned human scientist. He had come to Kepler Station 2 years ago to study their crystal technology and had become friends with many of the crew. But where were the rest of his people? 3 weeks ago at the Galactic Council meeting, Captain Lisa Grant had promised that human ships would come if the Dominion attacked. She had stood before all the assembled species and given her word that humanity would not abandon their new allies. Those had been brave words, but Velthara saw no human warships in the battle. The communication officer called out from his station, "Commander, we are receiving another surrender demand from the Dominion Queen Admiral." Velthara walked over to hear the message. The voice that came through the speakers was cold and clicking like an insect trying to speak. "Pathetic creatures of flesh and bone, you have 6 hours to surrender your station and submit to Dominion rule. If you refuse, we will destroy every living thing in this system and use your bodies to feed our young." The Zephyrian commander looked around the bridge at her crew. Their blue-scaled faces showed fear but also determination. They had all heard the stories from other systems that fell to the Dominion. Surrender meant slavery or death anyway, so fighting was their only choice. Lieutenant Jake Morrison approached from the communications center. The young human military observer had been stationed here to help coordinate with Earth forces when they arrived. But no Earth forces had come, and Jake looked as confused as everyone else about where his people might be. "Any word from your government?" "Jake," Velthara asked. The human shook his head. "Nothing, Commander. I have sent distress calls on every frequency we have, but there is no response. I do not understand why they have not come." An Altarian captain named Zexkor spoke up from the tactical display. His people were tall and thin with silver skin that reflected the bridge lights. Perhaps humans are not the warriors they claim to be. Maybe they decided this fight was too dangerous and chose to stay safe in their own territory. Jake looked hurt by the suggestion, but he could not argue with it. The evidence seemed clear that humanity had abandoned their promises when real danger appeared. Other species at the council had warned that humans were too emotional and soft to be reliable allies in a serious war. Dr. Kevin Walsh entered the bridge looking exhausted. "Commander, I have done what I can for the wounded in Section 7, but we need more medical supplies. The Dominion weapons cause terrible burns that are hard to treat." Velthara nodded. "Thank you, Kevin. Your people may not have sent ships, but at least you stayed to help us." The human scientist looked confused. "What do you mean about ships, Commander? Your Captain Grant promised military support, but no human vessels have come to help us fight." Kevin frowned. "That is strange. Captain Grant is not someone who makes empty promises. If she said help would come, then it will come." Zexkor made a clicking sound that was the Altarian version of laughter. "Your faith in your people is touching human, but we have been fighting alone for 6 days. If help was coming, it would be here by now." The station shook more violently as the Dominion increased their attack. Warning lights flashed red across all the control panels. The shield generator was overheating and would fail soon if they could not give it time to cool down. "All ships fall back to defensive position Beta," Velthara ordered. "We need to buy the shield some time." The remaining Zephyrian and Altarian ships moved closer to the station. Their weapons fired desperately at the approaching Dominion force, but the bio-armor on the enemy ships was too thick. Most shots barely left scorch marks on the organic hulls. Jake Morrison worked frantically at the communication station, trying different frequencies and codes. "There has to be something," he muttered. Earth Command would not just ignore a request for help. But hours passed with no response. The other aliens on the bridge began to whisper among themselves. They spoke in their own languages, but their meaning was clear. They thought humans were cowards who had run away when the fighting started. Dr. Kevin Walsh sat down heavily in a chair. His face was pale and drawn. "I cannot believe they would leave us like this. There must be some explanation." Zexcor walked over to the humans. "Perhaps your species is simply not built for war. Your bodies are fragile and your emotions make you weak. There is no shame in admitting you are not fighters." Jake stood up angrily. "Humans have fought wars for thousands of years. We know how to fight." "Against other humans, maybe," the Altarian replied. "But this is real warfare against a species that has conquered 17 star systems. Perhaps you finally realized you were not ready for this level of conflict." The argument was interrupted by another massive impact that sent everyone stumbling. The lights flickered and several control panels sparked. The shields were failing faster than expected under the increased bombardment. Velthara checked the tactical display. The Dominion ships were moving into final attack formation. Their bioweapons were charging for what looked like a killing blow. She had seen this pattern before when they destroyed other systems. "All hands prepare for final defense," she announced over the station communication system. "If we are going to die today, we will make them pay for every meter of space." The crew rushed to their battle stations. Engineers worked to squeeze every last bit of power from the failing systems. Gunners checked their weapons one more time. Medical teams prepared for the worst casualties yet. Jake Morrison sent out one last desperate message on all human frequencies. His voice was shaking as he spoke into the transmitter. "This is Lieutenant Jake Morrison calling any Earth forces in the area. Kepler Station is under attack and we need immediate assistance. If anyone can hear this, please respond." Only silence came back through the speakers. The young human officer slumped in his chair, looking defeated. Around him, the alien crew prepared to die fighting an enemy that seemed impossible to stop. The Dominion Queen Admiral sent her final message. "Your time is finished. Surrender now or be destroyed." The transmission ended with a sound like insect laughter that made everyone on the bridge shiver. Velthara looked at her chronometer. They had less than 1 hour before the deadline expired, and the final attack began. The final hour counted down like a death watch. Commander Velthara stood in the center of the command bridge, watching her officers prepare for what everyone knew would be their last battle. The tactical display showed the Dominion fleet moving into attack formation with the precision of a hunting pack. 800 bioships arranged themselves in perfect killing patterns, while her 43 vessels huddled around the station like frightened children. Lieutenant Jake Morrison had not left the communication station for the past 2 hours. His fingers moved over the controls, sending out message after message on every human frequency he could access. The young officer looked desperate as each call went unanswered. Sweat ran down his face despite the cool air of the bridge. "Still nothing," he reported to Commander Velthara. "I have tried every emergency channel and military frequency, but there is no response from any human ships." Dr. Kevin Walsh sat nearby, looking defeated. The human scientist had spent the last few hours helping treat wounded crew members, but now there was nothing more he could do. The medical bay was full of injured aliens, and supplies were running dangerously low. "I do not understand," Kevin said quietly. "Captain Grant was so certain when she made that promise at the council. She looked me in the eye and swore that humanity would honor our alliance." Zexcor, the Altarian captain, made a bitter clicking sound. "Perhaps she was just telling you what you wanted to hear, human. Politicians are the same across all species. They make promises they cannot keep." Other alien officers on the bridge nodded, in agreement. Over the past week, they had watched the Dominion destroy system after system while no human ships appeared anywhere in the fighting. The evidence seemed clear that humanity had decided to abandon their new galactic allies when real danger threatened. "Think about it logically," said Captain Mortash, a Zephyrian ship commander. Humans have only been in space for a few decades. They have never fought a war against another species. When they saw what the Dominion could do, they probably realized they were not ready for this kind of conflict. Jake Morrison turned from his station looking angry. You do not know humans like I do. We do not run from fights. If Captain Grant said help would come, then it will come. Then where are they? Zexcor demanded. We have been fighting alone for 6 days. If human ships were coming, they would be here by now. The station shook again as Dominion plasma bolts hammered the failing shields. Warning alarms rang throughout the command center as more systems began to overload. The outer defensive grid had already collapsed and the inner shields were starting to buckle under the constant bombardment. Velthera checked the damage reports flowing in from all sections of the station. Hull breaches in the lower levels were spreading faster than repair teams could seal them. The main reactor was running at dangerous levels, trying to power the shields and weapons at the same time. They had maybe 30 minutes before everything failed completely. All ships prepare for final assault pattern Omega, she ordered. We will group together and charge their main formation. If we are going to die, we will take as many of them with us as possible. The remaining Zephyrian and Alterian vessels acknowledged the order and began moving into position. Omega pattern was a desperate tactic that involved ramming enemy ships while overloading your own reactors. It was essentially a coordinated suicide attack designed to cause maximum damage before being destroyed. Dr. Kevin Walsh stood up from his chair. Commander, let me join one of the attack ships. I know I am not a soldier, but I can help with damage, control, or medical aid. Velthara looked at the human scientist with respect. You have already done more than enough, Kevin. You could have evacuated with the other civilians, but you stayed to help us. That shows more courage than many trained warriors possess. The human nodded, but his face still showed guilt about his people not arriving. Jake Morrison continued working at the communication station, but his movements were becoming more frantic. As time ran out, Captain Mortash reported from his ship. Commander, my reactor is ready for overload. We can maintain the explosion for approximately 47 seconds, which should be enough to take out at least 3 Dominion vessels. Other ship captains gave similar reports. They were preparing to turn their vessels into massive bombs that would detonate when they collided with enemy ships. It was a horrible way to die, but it might save some lives on the station if it disrupted. The Dominion attack formation. Zek's Corps looked at the tactical display showing enemy positions. The bioships have moved closer together to concentrate their firepower. That actually works in our favor for ramming attacks. We might be able to hit more targets than expected. The Dominion Queen Admiral sent another message that filled the bridge speakers with her cold insect voice. Primitive creatures, you have 15 minutes to surrender before we begin the final cleansing. Your pathetic resistance has been amusing, but now it ends, Velthara responded over the open channel. We do not surrender to parasites and slavers. Come and take our station if you can. The Queen Admiral made a sound like grinding metal. So, be it. All ships begin terminal bombardment, reduce their station to debris and prepare to harvest the survivors. The Dominion fleet opened fire with everything they had. Plasma bolts filled space like a deadly light show. The station shields flared bright blue as they absorbed impact after impact. But everyone could see the energy barriers flickering and fading under the massive assault. Jake Morrison suddenly straightened at his station. Wait, I'm getting something on the emergency frequency. Everyone on the bridge turned to look at him. The young human officer pressed his headset closer to his ear and listened intently. His face showed confusion and then growing excitement. It is very faint, but I think someone is responding, he said. The signal is coming from the edge of the system, but it is badly distorted. Dr. Kevin Walsh hurried over to the communication station. Can you clean up the signal, Jake? Maybe boost the reception. The lieutenant worked quickly, adjusting controls and filters. Slowly, a voice began to come through the static. It was speaking, in English, which made all the aliens on the bridge look at each other with surprise. Kepler Station. This is Captain Ryan Blake of the USS Liberty. We are approximately 20 minutes out from your position. Hang in there. People help is on the way. The bridge fell silent except for the sound of alarms and distant explosions. Jake Morrison stared at his equipment as if he could not believe what he had just heard. Dr. Kevin Walsh grabbed the communication microphone. Liberty, this is Dr. Kevin Walsh on Kepler Station. We are under heavy attack by over 800 Dominion ships. What is your fleet strength? There was a pause before the response came back. Fleet strength is one ship, Doctor. Just us. But we have been dealing with Dominion forces for the past 3 weeks, and we know how they fight. The aliens on the bridge looked at each other in disbelief. Zexcor made his clicking laugh sound. 1 ship against 800. The humans have finally arrived just in time to die with us. But Jake Morrison was smiling for the first time in days. You do not understand. The Liberty is not just any ship. It is one of our newest heavy cruisers. If Captain Blake says they can help, then they can help. Commander Velthera felt a tiny spark of hope, but tried not to let it grow too large. 1 ship, even a large one, could not possibly defeat the massive Dominion fleet, but at least they would not die alone. At least one group of humans had kept their promise to come. The station shook violently as the shields finally began to collapse. Warning lights flashed red throughout the command center. They had maybe 10 minutes before the Dominion broke through completely. All ships maintain defensive positions until the Liberty arrives, Velthara ordered. Then we coordinate our final attack. The crew acknowledged her commands, but everyone knew that one more ship would not change the outcome of this battle. They were still going to die. But somehow knowing that humans had not completely abandoned them made the coming death easier to accept. Space itself seemed to tear apart at the edge of the Kepler system. A massive distortion appeared where empty void had been moments before. The fabric of reality twisted and bent as something enormous pushed through from hyperspace. Warning alarms screamed on every ship as sensors detected energy readings that should not have been possible. Commander Velthara stared at the tactical display in amazement. The distortion was growing larger by the second, and the energy signatures coming from it were unlike anything in their databases. Even the Dominion ships had stopped firing to watch whatever was emerging from the twisted space. What kind of ship creates a hyperspace exit that large? Captain Mortash asked over the communication channel. His voice carried a mixture of awe and fear. Lieutenant Jake Morrison was working frantically at his station trying to get better readings. The computer cannot identify the ship type, Commander. It is showing mass readings that are off the scale. Doctor, Kevin Walsh pressed against the observation window trying to see what was happening. The distortion was bright enough to hurt the eyes, but he could make out a dark shape forming in the center of the twisted space. It was huge beyond anything he had ever imagined. The USS Liberty burst through the hyperspace barrier like a metal mountain erupting from the void. The ship was nearly 4 kilometers long and bristled with weapon systems that seemed to cover every available surface. Its hull was scarred and blackened from what looked like extensive combat damage, but it moved through space with deadly grace. Holy Terra, Jake Morrison whispered. That is not a heavy cruiser. That is a full battleship. The alien crew on the bridge stared in shocked silence. None of them had ever seen a human warship before, and they had not expected anything like this massive vessel. The Liberty was larger than their entire combined fleet and carried more weapons than some planetary defense systems. Captain Ryan Blake's voice came over the communication system clear and confident. Kepler Station, this is the Liberty. Sorry, we are late to the party, folks. We had to clear out 17 Dominion staging areas on our way here. Velthara found her voice after a few seconds of stunned silence. Liberty, this is Commander Velthara. We are grateful for your arrival, but you are facing over 800 enemy ships. Even a vessel your size cannot handle those numbers. The human captain's response carried a tone of grim amusement. Commander, we have been fighting Dominion forces for 3 weeks straight. We have learned a few things about how to deal with them. All Allied vessels, please maintain minimum safe distance. We are about to demonstrate why humanity took so long to join galactic civilization. The Dominion Queen Admiral had recovered from her initial surprise and was now broadcasting on all frequencies. Her insect voice carried rage and contempt. 1 ship against my entire fleet. The humans are either very brave or very stupid, no matter. Destroy this oversized target and then finish the station. The bioships began moving into attack formation around the Liberty. Their organic hulls pulsed with sickly green light as weapons charged for a concentrated bombardment. 800 vessels arranged themselves in a sphere pattern designed to hit the human ship from every direction at once. Captain Blake responded calmly to the threat. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to engage a numerically superior enemy force. Remember what we learned at the Proxima battle. Speed and violence of action will carry the day. Weapons free. The Liberty's weapon systems came online with a sound that seemed to resonate through space itself. Energy readings spiked to levels that made alien sensors overload and shut down. The massive ship began to glow as power flowed to systems that had never been seen before in galactic warfare. Dr. Kevin Walsh watched in fascination as the human battleship prepared for combat. "Jake, what kind of weapons does that ship carry? I have never seen energy signatures like those." The young officer was studying his displays with excitement and worry. "I am not cleared to know all the details, Doctor, but the Liberty is equipped with experimental systems, things that were still being tested when I left Earth." Zek's core made his clicking sound of disbelief. "Experimental weapons against a proven enemy fleet. The humans are going to get themselves killed and take us with them." But Commander Velthera was studying the tactical display more carefully. Something about the way the Liberty moved reminded her of a predator stalking prey. The ship was not positioning itself defensively like most vessels would when outnumbered. Instead, it was moving toward the center of the Dominion formation. "What is Captain Blake planning?" she wondered aloud. The answer came as the Dominion fleet opened fire. Hundreds of plasma bolts converged on the Liberty from every direction. The space around the human ship filled with deadly energy that should have melted any vessel caught in the crossfire. But the Liberty's shields held against the massive bombardment. Energy barriers flared bright blue as they absorbed impact after impact. The experimental shield generators that Earth scientists had developed were proving their worth against the most powerful weapons in known space. Captain Blake's voice came over the communication system again. "Phase 1 complete. Their weapons are effective but not overwhelming. Beginning Phase 2, the Liberty suddenly accelerated toward the densest part of the Dominion formation. Instead of maintaining distance and trading shots like conventional tactics demanded, the human ship was charging directly into the enemy fleet. "They are going to ram the bioships," Captain Mortash shouted. "The humans have gone insane." But Jake Morrison was smiling as he watched the tactical display. "No, Captain. They are doing something much more dangerous than ramming. They are going to show the Dominion what human warfare really looks like." The Liberty plowed into the middle of the enemy formation like a metal comet. Its massive bulk scattered smaller bioships that tried to block its path. But instead of ramming the larger vessels, the human battleship began to spin on its axis, while firing weapons in every direction. Nuclear missiles streamed from launch tubes in seemingly endless volleys. These primitive weapons, by galactic standards, proved unexpectedly effective when deployed in concentrated salvos. The bioarmor that protected Dominion ships could absorb energy weapons, but had trouble dealing with the massive kinetic and thermal damage of human nuclear warheads. Railgun batteries opened fire with projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed. The solid metal slugs punched through multiple bioships with single shots. The Dominion vessels had never faced purely kinetic weapons at these velocities, and their organic hulls simply could not stop the penetrating rounds. But it was the tactical doctrine that truly shocked both allies and enemies. The Liberty was not fighting like any other species. Instead of careful maneuvering and calculated risks, Captain Blake was using his ship like a brawler in a bar fight. The massive vessel absorbed tremendous damage while dealing out even more punishment to anything within range. "This is impossible," Zek's core said, staring at the tactical display. "No ship can survive fighting like that. They will be destroyed in minutes." Dr. Kevin Walsh was watching with growing understanding. "No, Zek's core, you are thinking about this wrong. Humans do not fight to minimize damage. We fight to win regardless of cost." The Dominion Queen Admiral was shrieking orders over the communication channels. Her careful formations were collapsing as ships scattered to avoid the rampaging human battleship. Some bio-vessels were trying to ram the Liberty, while others were falling back to regroup. But Captain Blake was not giving them time to reorganize. The Liberty continued its deadly dance through the enemy fleet. Every few seconds, another Dominion ship exploded or went dead in space. The human vessel was taking severe damage, but its experimental armor and shields were holding against attacks. That should have been fatal. Commander Velthara realized that she was watching something unprecedented in galactic warfare. The humans were not just fighting to survive or defend territory. They were fighting with a level of controlled aggression that no other species had ever displayed. All Allied ships move in to support the Liberty, she ordered. If the humans are willing to risk everything for us, then we will do the same for them. The remaining Zephyrian and Alterian vessels charged toward the battle. Their smaller weapons added to the chaos as they targeted damaged Dominion ships. Working together with the Liberty, they began to turn the tide of what had seemed like an impossible battle. The Queen Admiral's voice carried panic for the first time. All ships concentrate fire on the human vessel. Destroy it before it ruins everything. But it was already too late. The Liberty had shattered the Dominion formation and proven that their fleet was not invincible. What had started as a certain victory was becoming a desperate fight for survival. The battle had become something beyond anything recorded in galactic military history. The USS Liberty moved through the Dominion fleet like a force of nature unleashed. Captain Ryan Blake and his crew were demonstrating a form of warfare so aggressive and unpredictable that enemy commanders could not develop effective countermeasures. Commander, Velthara watched from Kepler Station as the massive human battleship carved a path of destruction through bioships that had seemed invincible hours before. The Liberty was now surrounded by dozens of enemy vessels, but instead of being trapped, it was using their numbers against them. Tactical analysis shows the humans are deliberately drawing fire from multiple directions, reported Lieutenant Zex Kor from his station. Their shields are redistributing energy to absorb impacts while their weapons target the closest threats. It should not work, but somehow they are surviving. Lieutenant Jake Morrison was coordinating with the Liberty's crew from the communication station. The young human officer had established direct contact with the battleship's tactical department and was helping relay information about Dominion weak points that the aliens had discovered during their week of fighting. Captain Blake, this is Lieutenant Morrison. Our analysis shows that Dominion bioships are most vulnerable at the junction points where their weapon pods connect to the main hull. The response came back immediately over the static-filled channel. Copy that, Lieutenant. We have been targeting those areas with good results. Tell your commander that we are about to try something that might look crazy, but it should work. Dr. Kevin Walsh pressed closer to the communication station. What is he planning, Jake? Before the lieutenant could answer, the Liberty suddenly changed course. The massive ship had been spinning to keep its weapons pointed at different targets, but now it straightened out and accelerated directly toward the largest concentration of Dominion vessels. They are going to ram the Queen Admiral's flagship, Captain Mortash shouted from his position at the tactical display. The humans have finally lost their minds. But instead of ramming the bio-dreadnought, the Liberty opened fire with every weapon it possessed. Nuclear missiles streamed toward the enemy flagship in waves while railgun rounds punched through its escort vessels. The concentration of firepower was so intense that space itself seemed to burn around the target area. Lieutenant Amy Chen's voice came over the communication system from the Liberty's bridge. All Allied vessels, we need you to coordinate strikes on the following targets. We are sending you firing solutions now. Tactical data flowed to the alien ships showing exactly where and when to shoot for maximum effectiveness. The humans had calculated attack patterns that would use the smaller Allied vessels as precision instruments, rather than just additional firepower. Commander Velthara gave the order immediately. All ships follow the human targeting data. Coordinate your attacks with the Liberty's assault. The remaining Zephyrian and Alterian vessels moved into position around the edges of the battle. Their weapons were much smaller than the Liberty's massive guns, but they could hit specific weak points that the larger ship could not target effectively. The coordinated assault was devastating. Human nuclear warheads opened up gaps in bioarmor that alien energy weapons could exploit. Railgun rounds from the Liberty punched through multiple ships, creating clear firing lanes for the Allied vessels. The careful cooperation between different weapon types and tactical approaches created destruction far beyond what any single fleet could achieve. But the cost was becoming apparent on the Liberty. The human battleship had absorbed incredible amounts of damage during its rampage through the enemy formation. Hull breaches glowed like wounds along its scarred sides. Several weapon batteries had gone silent after taking direct hits. Sergeant Chris Taylor's voice crackled over the communication system from the Liberty's weapons department. We are down to 60% firepower, and the main reactor is running hot. But we still have plenty of fight left in us. The Dominion Queen Admiral was broadcasting continuously now, and her insect voice carried growing desperation. All ships, ignore the smaller vessels. Concentrate everything on the human ship. It must be destroyed before it can escape. Captain Blake responded with grim humor. Your Majesty, we are not planning to escape anywhere. We came here to finish this fight, and that is exactly what we intend to do. The Liberty suddenly executed a maneuver that seemed to violate the basic laws of physics. The massive ship flipped, end over end, while continuing to move forward. This allowed it to bring undamaged weapon batteries to bear on targets that had thought they were attacking from safe angles. How is that possible? Zexcor demanded. Ships that large cannot maneuver. Like fighters. Jake Morrison was studying the technical readouts flowing from the Liberty. Human ships are built differently than yours. We design them to absorb punishment and keep fighting even when heavily damaged. The Liberty can operate at effectiveness levels that would cripple other vessels. The tactical display showed the battle reaching a critical point. The Dominion fleet still outnumbered the defenders by more than 10-1, but their formations had been completely disrupted. Bioships were scattered across the battlefield trying to regroup while the Liberty and its allied escorts continued to hunt them down. Dr. Kevin Walsh watched a group of Dominion vessels attempting to flee toward the edge of the system. Some of them are trying to escape. Should we pursue? Commander Velthara was about to order the allied ships to give chase when Captain Blake's voice interrupted. Negative on pursuit, Commander. We need to stay together and finish the ships that are still fighting. The runners will spread word about what happened here, and that will serve our purposes just fine. The human captain was thinking beyond just this single battle. Word of a Dominion defeat would spread throughout their empire and might cause other enslaved species to rise up in rebellion. Sometimes letting enemies escape could be more effective than destroying them completely. Lieutenant Sarah Miller reported from the Liberty's navigation station. Captain, we have 31 confirmed kills on bioships and at least twice that number damaged or disabled. Enemy fleet effectiveness is down to approximately 40%. The Queen Admiral's flagship was still operational, but it was now surrounded by the wreckage of its escort vessels. The massive bio-dreadnought had thick armor and powerful weapons, but it was designed to fight from the center of a protective formation. Alone against the Liberty and the Allied fleet, it was much more vulnerable. All ships prepare for final assault on the enemy flagship, Captain Blake ordered. We are going to end this war right here and right now. The remaining human and alien vessels formed up for a coordinated attack. The Liberty would lead the charge while the smaller ships targeted specific weak points that their sensors had identified. It was dangerous because the Queen Admiral's ship carried enough firepower to destroy them all if they made mistakes. But as the assault began, Commander Velthara realized something important about human military doctrine. They did not fight wars to win individual battles. They fought wars to achieve lasting peace. The destruction of the Dominion flagship would send a message that would echo throughout the galaxy. The final phase of the battle was about to begin, and everyone knew that the outcome would determine the fate of dozens of star systems. The humans had proven that the Dominion could be defeated, but now they had to finish what they had started. The final assault began with the USS Liberty leading a desperate charge against the Dominion Queen Admiral's flagship. The massive bio-dreadnought sat in the center of a debris field, created from its own destroyed escort vessels. Its organic hull pulsed with angry red light as it prepared to make its last stand against the combined human and alien fleet. Captain Ryan Blake coordinated the attack from the Liberty's damaged bridge. Smoke filled the air from overloaded systems, and several crew stations showed the scars of plasma burns that had penetrated the hull. But the human officers continued working with grim determination to finish the battle they had started. Lieutenant Sarah Miller, plot an intercept course for the flagship, Blake ordered. We are going to get close enough to use our main batteries at point-blank range. The navigator's fingers moved quickly over her damaged controls. Course plotted, Captain, but I should warn you that we will be in range of all their weapons. At that distance, their plasma cannons will go right through our weakened shields. Blake nodded grimly. Understood, Lieutenant. Sergeant Taylor, are the nuclear missiles ready for final salvo? Sergeant Chris Taylor reported from the weapons station. We have 18 warheads left, Captain. Not much compared to what we started with, but they should be enough if we can get them through the enemy point defenses. From Kepler Station, Commander Velthera watched the Liberty accelerate toward what looked like certain destruction. The human battleship was already heavily damaged, and the Queen Admiral's flagship possessed enough firepower to vaporize it completely. But instead of hanging back safely, the humans were charging straight into the teeth of the enemy weapons. They are going to sacrifice themselves, she said quietly to Dr. Kevin Walsh, who stood beside her at the observation window. The human scientist shook his head. No, Commander. Captain Blake has a plan. I have studied human military history, and we do not throw our lives away pointlessly. There is something else happening here. Lieutenant Jake Morrison was working frantically at the communication station, coordinating between the Liberty and the Allied ships. His job was to make sure everyone understood their role in the final attack. The timing had to be perfect, or the entire plan would fail. All Allied vessels, this is Morrison. Execute attack pattern Delta in 30 seconds. Remember to target the bioship's sensor clusters first. We need to blind it before the Liberty moves in. The remaining Zephyrian and Alterian ships spread out around the enemy flagship. Their smaller weapons began targeting the organic sensor pods that dotted the dreadnought's hull. Coordinated energy blasts damaged or destroyed the Dominion ship's ability to track multiple targets effectively. The Queen Admiral's voice filled the communication channels with rage and desperation. Insignificant creatures you dare to attack the heart of the Dominion fleet. I will feed your bodies to my offspring and use your bones to decorate my throne room. Captain Blake responded calmly over the open frequency. Your Majesty, the only thing you are going to feed today is the vacuum of space. All hands brace for impact. The Liberty struck the bio-dreadnought's shields at ramming speed, but instead of trying to penetrate them, the human ship used the impact to change course. The massive battleship bounced off the enemy barriers and swung around to attack from an unexpected angle. This maneuver brought its main weapons within optimal range while avoiding the heaviest defensive fire. Nuclear missiles launched from the Liberty's tubes in rapid succession. The warheads were targeted at specific weak points that the Allied ships had identified during their diversionary attacks. Explosions blossomed along the bioship's hull as human nuclear weapons did what they did best, creating massive destruction through brute force. The Queen Admiral's flagship shuddered under the bombardment. Its organic armor was tough, but it had not evolved to deal with the concentrated thermal and kinetic energy of nuclear detonations. Cracks appeared in the biohull as internal pressure systems failed under the assault, but the Dominion vessel was far from helpless. Plasma cannons swiveled to track the Liberty and opened fire with everything they possessed. Green energy bolts hammered the human ship's weakened shields. Several shots penetrated the barriers and burned through the battleship's armor plating. Lieutenant Amy Chen reported damage from the tactical station. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. We have lost main power to the port weapon batteries. Reactor output is down to 70% and falling. The Liberty was dying, but it was not finished fighting. Captain Blake ordered his ship to maintain close range with the enemy flagship, even as both vessels traded devastating fire. The human strategy was to stay so close that the bioship could not use its superior numbers of weapons effectively. From the communication station, Jake Morrison coordinated the final phase of the battle plan. All Allied ships target the flagship's main reactor. We are sending you the exact coordinates now. You will only get one chance to make this shot count. Dr. Kevin Walsh had worked with the Liberty's science officer to analyze the bioship's internal structure during the fighting. They had discovered that Dominion vessels had a critical weakness. Their organic reactors were not well protected because they had never needed to be. No enemy had ever gotten close enough to target them directly. The alien ships moved into position around the damaged flagship. Their energy weapons had been recalibrated to penetrate deep into the bioship's hull. Working together, they could deliver enough concentrated firepower to reach the reactor core if their timing was perfect. Firing in 5 seconds, Commander Velthera announced from her ship. All vessels coordinate on my mark. The combined alien fleet opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams converged on a single point deep inside the Dominion flagship. The bio-armor held for a few seconds and then began to give way under the sustained bombardment. Organic material vaporized as the alien weapons burned through layer after layer of hull plating. The Queen Admiral realized what was happening and tried to maneuver her ship away from the attack. But the Liberty was still locked in close combat, and its weapons continued to damage the bioship's control systems. The flagship could not escape fast enough to avoid the penetrating energy beams. "Reactor breach detected," Sarah Miller reported from the Liberty's bridge. "The bioship's power core is going critical." Captain Blake immediately ordered all ships to withdraw to minimum safe distance. The explosion of a Dominion reactor was something that no one wanted to experience at close range. The organic power systems released energy in ways that were completely different from conventional reactors. The Queen Admiral's final transmission was filled with disbelief and rage. "This is impossible. The Dominion cannot be defeated by inferior species. We have conquered 17 star systems." Captain Blake responded one last time. "Your Majesty, you made a critical error. You assumed that having better technology made you invincible. But warfare is not just about weapons and ships. It is about the will to sacrifice everything for the people you are sworn to protect." The bio-dreadnought exploded in a blast of organic energy that lit up the entire star system. The destruction of the flagship sent shockwaves through the remaining Dominion ships. Without their Queen Admiral to coordinate them, the bio-vessels began to scatter in all directions. Some tried to fight on, but they were quickly overwhelmed by the combined human and alien forces. Others attempted to flee toward the edge of the system but found their escape routes blocked by ships that had seemed beaten just hours before. The Dominion fleet that had arrived with over 800 vessels was reduced to scattered survivors running for their lives. As the smoke cleared from the battlefield, Commander Velthara looked upon her human allies with newfound respect and understanding. The Liberty was heavily damaged and barely operational, but it had proven something important about humanity's place in the galaxy. Dr. Kevin Walsh helped coordinate rescue operations for the crew members who had been injured during the fighting. The human scientist worked alongside alien medics to treat wounds that had been caused by weapons from across known space. "I do not understand how you knew the plan would work," Velthara said to Captain Blake during the post-battle communication. Human captain's voice carried exhaustion but also satisfaction. "Commander, we did not fight this battle to win a single engagement. We fought it to prove that the Dominion could be defeated. Word of this victory will spread throughout their empire, and other enslaved species will rise up in rebellion." Lieutenant A. Jake Morrison was already receiving reports from other star systems. Human intelligence networks that had been quiet for weeks were suddenly active with news of uprisings and revolts. The destruction of a Dominion fleet had given hope to billions of beings who had thought resistance was impossible. The battle for Kepler Station was over, but the larger war was just beginning. Humanity had announced their presence in galactic affairs, not with diplomacy or trade agreements, but with the kind of decisive military action that changed the balance of power forever. As rescue ships arrived to help repair the damaged vessels, Commander Velthara realized that the galaxy would never be the same. Humans had proven they were not just another species seeking peaceful coexistence.